"We are asking for help from all spacefaring races," the elderly blue-skinned alien said, his voice cracking as he addressed the Galactic Council. The Arterians said it wasn't their problem. The Meridian Collective said it was too risky. His three-fingered hand trembled as he gestured to the humans beside him. Only Earth responded. Only humans chose to stand with us when the Void Empire came to exterminate our entire species. 3 months earlier, an emergency transmission had interrupted the night shift at the UN Space Command headquarters. Catherine Miller stared at her screen as the message played, her coffee cup paused mid-sip. The blue-skinned Centurion ambassador's voice trembled with fear. "This is Ambassador Trell from Century Prime. We are under attack. The Void Empire has breached our outer defenses. They are killing everyone. Please, Earth someone. Help us." The transmission cut out amid static. Catherine put down her cup, her hand shaking. Images from his time on Century Prime flashed through his mind. Trell's family welcoming him into their home, showing him their ancestral library, a gesture of trust no other alien race had ever offered humanity. Now his allies faced extinction. He pressed the alert button. Ambassador Miller speaking. "Awaken Admiral Walker and the Security Council." 30 minutes later, the Space Command crisis room was filled with Earth's top political and military leaders. Admiral James Walker, a tall man with gray hair and a serious face, stood at the front of the room. The recording played again, this time accompanied by satellite images showing Void Empire ships surrounding Century Prime. Flames bloomed across the planet's surface like deadly flowers. "The Void Empire launched its attack 3 hours ago," Walker said, his voice strained, barely containing his anger. "Their fleet outnumbers the Century Prime defense force by a factor of 5. This is deliberate genocide." "And what about the other races with spatial capabilities?" someone asked. "The Arterians, the Meridian Collective. They all declared neutrality," Catherine replied, visibly frustrated. "They won't risk confronting the Void Empire." Walker projected more images on the main screen. Cities were shown burning, civilian ships shot down as they tried to escape. The Centurions are peaceful. Their military force was created for defense, not war. Without help, they will be eliminated in a matter of days. The room fell silent. Earth had never faced such a decision. The Void Empire was the most powerful force in the known galaxy. Confronting it meant going to war, a war that humanity might not survive. Catherine choked back tears as she recalled her first encounter with the Centurions. They had approached Earth with open arms, sharing their knowledge without reservation. While other alien races were cautious or disdainful, the Centurions saw potential in humanity, helped develop Earth's space program, and offered medical knowledge that saved millions of lives. "If we help them," the Secretary of Defense said, "we will be signing our own death warrant. The technology the Void Empire is centuries ahead of us. And if we don't?" Catherine stood firm. "If we let them die, what does that say about us? The Centurions are our friends. They trusted us, they helped us, and now that they need us most, we're going to debate whether saving them is right." Admiral Walker nodded. "Ambassador Miller is right, but the decision must be unanimous. The consequences will affect all of humanity." They debated for 3 hours. Reports from Century Prime kept pouring in, cities falling, millions dead. The Void Empire's demands were clear: surrender and face extinction, or fight and face extinction. Finally, the UN Secretary-General called for a vote. The room fell silent as hands rose one by one. The decision was unanimous. Admiral Walker immediately began issuing orders. Launch the emergency response fleet. Contact all our allies. From this moment on, Earth is at war with the Void Empire. Catherine rushed to send a message to Century Prime. Hold on. Help is on the way. Earth is with you. As she watched Earth's ships prepare to depart, Catherine recalled something an elderly Centurion had once told her. The true measure of a civilization is not its technology or its wealth. It is the courage to stand up for what is right, even if it costs you everything. Outside her window, Catherine saw the first rays of sunlight paint the sky orange. Somewhere out there, Centurions were fighting for survival, waiting for the aid that only Earth had the courage to offer. The war for survival was about to begin, and humanity had chosen its path. They would fight alongside their friends, no matter the cost. Lieutenant Emily Parker stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, observing the Void Empire's massive blockade through the main viewfinder. Her mission was clear, but nearly impossible: break through their lines and evacuate as many Centurion civilians as possible. "Status report," she called, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. Technical Officer Michael Roberts raised the view from their station. "The enemy ships were maintaining their formation, but I found something interesting in the frequency of their shields. There's a pattern, a weakness we could exploit." Emily approached their station, studying the complex data on the screen. While other military vessels were fighting the Void Empire head-on, the Defiant had a different mission. They needed stealth, not firepower. "How much time to analyze the pattern?" she asked. 20 minutes, Michael replied. "They're killing more civilians every minute," Emily said. "You have 10. The bridge crew worked in tense silence. Through the long-range cameras, they could see the burning cities of Century Prime. The Void Empire wasn't just winning, it was destroying everything. Michael's voice broke the silence. "I've got it. Their shields cycle every 8 seconds. There's a half-second window where they're weakest. If we time it right, we can break through." Emily nodded. "Send the order to the evacuation teams. We're on our way." The Defiant moved silently through space without emitting any signals. Avoid detection. Emily had trained her entire career for combat, but nothing had prepared her for this. A single mistake would mean death for everyone on board and the thousands of civilians who depended on them. "Enemy patrol approaching," the radar operator warned. "Hold position," Emily ordered. They watched as 2 enormous Void Empire ships passed within 1,000 meters. No one on the bridge dared to breathe. After what seemed like hours, Michael spoke again. "Shield window in 10 seconds. 9. Emily gripped the arms of her chair tightly. "All power to engines on my signal. 3. 2. 1. Now the Defiant shot off like a bullet. For a harrowing instant, they were surrounded by the glare of enemy shields, and then they were on the other side, hurtling toward the surface of Century Prime. "Multiple ships have detected us," the radar operator shouted. "They're deploying fighters." "Hold course," Emily ordered. "Take us to the evacuation point." The ship rattled with nearby explosions as enemy fire filled the space around them. But the Defiant was smaller and faster than anything the Void Empire possessed. They sliced through the atmosphere, skimming the rooftops of burning buildings. Landing at the hidden evacuation point, they found hundreds of Centurion civilians waiting, guarded by only a few officers. Among them was Thomas Reed, one of the last Centurion historians. "Quickly," Emily shouted as they lowered the cargo ramps. "We have 10 minutes before they pinpoint our location." As the civilians hurried aboard, Thomas approached Emily. "You humans," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We asked for help from all the space races. The Arterians said it wasn't their problem. The Meridian Collective said it was too risky, but you came. We're going to need your help, too," Michael said, still working at his console. "I found a weakness in their defense systems, but I need to understand their technology better." Thomas nodded. "Whatever you need. But why? Why risk everything for us?" Emily helped a Centurion child aboard because it's the right thing to do. Because they're our friends, and because if we let them destroy you, we'll be next. The ship was almost full when the first enemy ships appeared in the sky. "Time to go," Emily shouted. The Defiant took off under heavy fire. Emily's hands moved swiftly over the controls, dodging anti-aircraft fire. Michael's discovery about the shield frequency was key to breaking through the blockade again, this time with their precious cargo. When they jumped to a safe zone, Emily looked at the scanner, which showed hundreds of frightened but alive Centurions in the cargo hold. It was a small victory in a gigantic war, but it was something. "They'll remember this," Thomas said quietly. "Whatever happens, the galaxy will remember that when everyone else turned their backs, humanity came to the rescue." The Defiance communications system suddenly issued an urgent alert. Emily's blood ran cold as she read the incoming message. The Void Empire had discovered Earth's intervention, and their response was beyond anything they were prepared to face. Quick pause on the broadcast. Before we continue this galactic journey, if you're enjoying this unique sci-fi experience, subscribe to the channel now and, most importantly, hit the notification bell. That way, YouTube's algorithm will make sure you don't miss the next videos with the most mind-blowing science fiction stories you won't find anywhere else. Now then, back to our story. Captain Robert Hayes was in the command center of Earth's largest space station, watching as red dots multiplied on the tactical display. Each dot represented a Void Empire ship, approaching the human colonies, hundreds of them, many more than they had anticipated. Intelligence had never reported anything like this on a single fleet. "Sir," a young officer called, her voice trembling. "Void Empire transmission." Robert straightened his uniform. "Put it on screen." The image filled with the dark, shadowy figure of the Void Empire's Supreme Commander. His voice was cold and mechanical. "You have 24 hours to abandon your alliance with the Centurions. If you refuse, we will destroy every human colony, one by one." Dr. Elizabeth Cooper, Earth's leading weapons scientist, stood beside Robert. She had been working tirelessly for days with Centurion refugees to find a way to counterattack. "We need more time," she whispered. "The new defense systems aren't ready yet." Robert's response was firm. "Earth doesn't abandon its friends. They can threaten us all they want, but we won't stand idly by while they commit genocide." "So they've chosen extinction," the Supreme Commander said before cutting the transmission. Elizabeth rushed back to her lab, where human and Centurion scientists were working together. Parts of Void Empire technology, salvaged from previous battles, covered the tables. "We need to pick up the pace," she announced. "They're coming." In the refugee sector, thousands of Centurions watched the news with growing horror. Earth was about to face the Empire's wrath because of them. Some proposed surrendering to save their human allies, but Robert had other plans. He called an emergency meeting with the surviving Centurion military leaders. "We need everything you know about their attack patterns. We may have fewer weapons, but we can outsmart them." The first attack was not long in coming. A Void Empire fleet appeared in orbit around the Martian colony. But Earth was prepared. New defense satellites, built with combined human and Centurion technology, were activated. The battle was intense, but the colony held. "It worked," Elizabeth shouted as she looked at the data. "The shields are holding." The victory was short-lived. More Imperial ships arrived at other colonies. The Venus station sent a distress signal. Then came the moons of Jupiter. Earth's forces were stretched to the limit, fighting desperately on all fronts. Robert hadn't slept in days, nor had his team. They coordinated defenses, moved refugees, and tried to anticipate the enemy's next move. Every hour brought news of victories and losses. In his lab, Elizabeth made a breakthrough. "Captain," Robert called on the emergency line. "We've figured it out. Their weapons use a specific energy frequency. If we can match it and reverse it, in simple 9 words, Doctor," Robert said wearily, "we can make their own weapons turn against them, but we need to get very close to their ships. Dangerously close." Robert glanced back at the tactical display. More red dots appeared every hour. They were running out of options. "How long would it take to install that on our ships?" 12 hours for the first one. But Captain Elizabeth hesitated. The first test could go wrong, very wrong. Everything in this war could go wrong, Robert replied. Do it. Marine Commander David Anderson crouched behind a fallen column on Century Prime, watching enemy troops march through the ruined streets. His team of human Marines and Centurion fighters waited silently in the shadows. They had only one chance to retake the capital's main power station. Remember, he whispered into the radio, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore, this is our home too. The joint human Centurion force had trained together for weeks. At first, it was awkward. Different languages, different ways of fighting, but now they moved as one. The Centurions had taught the humans about stealth and patience, and the humans had shared their aggressive tactics. Sir, his second-in-command whispered. Enemy patrol approaching. David raised his hand, signaling everyone to stay put. 3 Void Empire soldiers marched past their position, their black armor gleaming in the dim light. They looked powerful and terrifying, but David's team had learned something important. They weren't invincible. The signal came from across the street. A small group of surviving civilians had spotted a gap in the enemy defenses. It was time to act. Team 1, advance, David ordered quietly. Humans and Centurions moved forward together through the ruins. They had practiced this dozens of times. The Centurions' natural ability to move silently made them perfect for clearing the way. The humans followed with their heavy weapons. Inside the power station, they found what they were looking for, a new type of Void Empire weapon. Scientists like Dr. Cooper needed to study it to uncover more weaknesses. Pack it up, David ordered. Quickly, but in war, nothing is easy. An alarm blared throughout the building. They'd been detected. Defensive positions. David shouted. Protect the tech team. The battle that ensued would be remembered for years. Humans and Centurions fought side by side, covering each other's weaknesses. When human weapons couldn't penetrate enemy shields, Centurion technology found a way. When the Centurions needed cover, the human Marines provided heavy fire. Sir, one of your soldiers called. They're broadcasting this. David glanced at the small screen. The battle was being broadcast across the galaxy. Other alien races were watching as humans and Centurions fought together against impossible odds. Good, David said, firing his rifle. Let them see what true allies do. The fight for the power station lasted 3 hours. They lost good men and women, both human and Centurion, but they held on. When the last enemy soldier fell, David looked at his mixed team. They were tired, wounded, but proud. A young Centauri warrior helped a wounded human Marine walk. 2 human engineers worked with Centauri technicians to secure the captured weapon. This was what the Void Empire feared most. Different species working together, becoming stronger together than apart. Commander, his radio crackled. You have to see this. Images from across the galaxy flashed across all the power station screens. The battle transmission had worked better than they'd hoped. Other alien races, inspired by what they'd seen, were finally taking sides. Ships from 2 more species had arrived to aid Earth and Centauri. They're calling it the Battle of Nova Station, his officer said. They say it shows what's possible when species work together. David watched his team securing the area. Humans tended to wounded Centurions. Centurions shared their food with hungry Marines. This was more than a battle. It was proof that different species could be more than allies. They could be brothers. He activated his base radio. This is Commander Anderson. The power station is secure, but we gained something more important than a building. We showed the galaxy what humanity stands for. The response came directly from Admiral Walker. Well done, Commander. Your team just turned the tide of this war. Admiral James Walker stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Thunder, his face serious as reports came in from all over the solar system. The Void Empire had launched a coordinated assault on 3 human colonies simultaneously. Europa Station is under heavy bombardment, the communications officer announced. Civilian casualties are significant. Saturn Outpost reports shield failures in sectors 5 through 8, another officer reported. Walker gripped the railing tightly. The war was taking a devastating toll. 6 weeks of constant fighting had pushed Earth's resources to the limit. Even with the help of the Centurions and the 2 alien races that had joined their cause, they were losing ground. Admiral, his second-in-command said quietly. The Security Council called for an emergency meeting. Some representatives were suggesting negotiation. Walker's jaw tightened. Negotiate. The Void Empire doesn't negotiate. It exterminates. On Earth, Catherine Miller faced the Security Council. The atmosphere was very different from that first night when everyone had voted unanimously to aid the Centurions. The death toll had already reached 1 million, the Secretary of Defense reported. Our industrial capacity was stretched to the limit. There were 3 more colonies in immediate danger. Perhaps we should consider the Void Empire's latest proposal, a council member suggested. They're only asking us to withdraw our support for the Centurions, not to surrender ourselves. Catherine stood up indignantly. They've already forgotten what we're fighting for. The moment we abandon the Centurions, we'll be next, and we'll face them alone. The debate dragged on for hours. Catherine could see the fear in their faces, the same fear that had prevented other alien races from aiding the Centurions in the first place. Fear was winning. On the battlefield, Commander David Anderson carried a wounded soldier through the rubble of what had once been a beautiful Centurion city. The combined human-Centurion force had been driven from 3 strategic positions in just 2 days. "Hang on, Martinez," he whispered to the wounded Marine. "The medical tent is right up ahead." When he arrived at the field hospital, the scene stunned him. Rows and rows of wounded, both human and Centurion. The medics were working frantically, but supplies were running low. "We can't withstand another attack like that," his Centurion second-in-command said. "Verex, we're losing too many." David nodded grimly. His radio crackled to life. "Commander Anderson, HQ here. Priority transmission." The news wasn't good. Earth's newest allied species. The Meridians were hesitant to continue their support. After losing several ships in the last battle, they were considering withdrawing. "They're scared," Verex said simply. "Everyone's afraid," David replied. "That's the point. The Void Empire uses fear as a weapon, perhaps more effectively than its own weapons." In her lab, Dr. Elizabeth Cooper had made a shocking discovery. She and her team had been analyzing data recovered from a downed Void Empire command ship. What they found changed everything. "Admiral Walker," she said, her voice slightly trembling as she made the distress call, "we found something. The Void Empire wasn't always like this." The files contained historical records, the Void Empire's own history. Centuries ago, they had been a peaceful species until they were nearly wiped out by a powerful enemy. Only a few survived. They rebuilt their civilization based on a single principle, Elizabeth explained, scrolling through the translated documents on the screen. Never to be vulnerable again. Their entire society is built on fear, the fear of extinction. They attack other species not out of hatred, but because they are terrified of what might happen if they don't strike first. "And how does that help us?" Walker asked. "Their fear is their weakness. Their ships, their weapons, everything is designed with layers and layers of backup systems," Elizabeth replied. "They never take risks. If we could force them into a situation where they have to risk everything." Before she could finish, the alarms blared. A Void Empire armada appeared on the main screen, larger than any seen before. It was heading straight for Earth. The Defiant, commanded by Lieutenant Emily Parker, was returning to Earth battered after a failed evacuation mission. For the first time, they had been forced to retreat without saving a single civilian. Half their crew was injured, and the ship had barely escaped. As they approached Earth, their tactical officer gasped. "Lieutenant, look, the Void Empire Armada is filling the screen. Hundreds of warships closing in on Earth's orbital defenses." "Here it is," Michael said quietly. "They're going all out." The remaining Earth fleet mobilized to intercept, accompanied by their Centurion allies and the few ships from other races that had not yet withdrawn. It was a weak defense compared to the force that was approaching. "All hands to battle stations," Emily ordered, knowing the Defiant didn't have much more to offer. "Let's join the defense." On Earth, Catherine Miller watched as the results of the Security Council vote came in. By a razor-thin margin, the decision had been made to continue the fight, to stand with the Centurions to the bitter end, whatever it might be. She wrote what might be her final message to the Centurion leadership. "Earth is with you now and forever. Whatever happens, we will face it together." As Earth's defenses braced for the overwhelming assault, Admiral Walker gathered the commanders of every ship, human and alien, for one last briefing. "We have uncovered the secret of the Void Empire," he told them, sharing Dr. Cooper's discovery. "They attack because they are afraid. Their fear drives them to destroy any threat before it even arises." "And how does knowing that help us now?" a Centurion captain asked, gesturing toward the massive enemy fleet approaching. "Because now we know what they truly fear," he replied. "Walker. It's not our weapons or our technology, but what we stand for. Different species united, growing stronger through alliance, not conquest. That unity terrifies them because it's the one thing they can't control." He displayed a tactical diagram on the screen. "Dr. Cooper has developed a desperate plan. Operation Lightning is extremely high risk, possibly suicidal, but if it works, we might have a chance." As Walker explained the audacious plan, the faces in the room showed a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. "This is insane," one of the captains said. "It's our only option," Walker replied. "The question is, do we have the courage to try it?" Admiral James Walker stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Thunder, watching as his fleet assembled for Operation Lightning. 500 ships. The largest human fleet ever assembled, accompanied by 30 Centurion vessels and the few allies who hadn't yet fled. "All ships report being ready, sir," his bridge officer announced. Walker nodded, his face steady. "Send the signal. Operation Lightning begins now." The plan was so audacious it bordered on madness. While the bulk of Earth's forces faced the Void Empire's massive armada near Earth orbit, feigning a last, suicidal stand, a special strike team would infiltrate behind enemy lines. Their target, the Void Empire's largest command base, hitherto considered untouchable. "Remember," Walker told his captains, "we are no longer just fighting for survival. We are fighting to show the galaxy that there is another way, one where different species stand together." As Earth's fleet took up position, Walker received an unexpected message. 3 more alien species, who until now had stubbornly remained neutral, were sending ships, not many, but enough to show they had chosen a side. "It seems your battle transmission is still paying off, Commander Anderson," Walker said over the communicator. On the ground, David Anderson and his mixed forces were preparing for their part of the plan. They would attack key Void Empire installations on Mars, diverting attention from the true objective. "Ready to make some noise?" asked Davix, their Centurion second-in-command. "Ready to show them what true allies do," replied Barks with a grim smile. In her lab on Earth, Dr. Elizabeth Cooper worked frantically with her team, putting the finishing touches on the weapon that would determine the success or failure of Operation Ray. "The shield disruptor is operational," she announced, her voice strained with fatigue. "But it must be placed directly inside the command base to function." "And who's crazy enough to deliver it?" asked one of her assistants. The answer came over the communicator. "That would be us." Lieutenant Emily Parker's voice was firm, even though her ship, the Defiant, had barely been repaired after its last mission. "The Defiant is the fastest and stealthiest ship we have," Emily continued. If anyone can penetrate their defenses, it's us. The mission was nearly impossible, a one-way trip, according to any realistic analysis. Elizabeth knew it, but couldn't say it aloud. The disruptor must be placed on your central shield generator, she instructed. Once activated, it will cause a cascading failure across all your defensive systems. You'll have 3 minutes to get out before the disruption reaches a critical level. Understood, Emily replied. We're on our way to pick it up. Closing the communication, Elizabeth turned to her mixed team of human and alien scientists. If this works, it will change everything. Not just this battle, but the way the galaxy works. Catherine Miller was at Earth's Planetary Defense Control Center, coordinating communications between political leaders and the military. On the main screen, the colossal fleet of the Void Empire was approaching, thousands of ships, more than anyone had thought existed. They've put everything they have into this, an analyst said. Este es su final.